want to thank you for joining us here today. I was just trying to get some thoughts together. Happy to see you. We're in the month of April, so this is going to be an open and challenging month to cause you and I to think and grow. So we definitely want to welcome in those that are with us here at the Greenville campus, the satellite campus here in Greenville, of course, to the Mother Church in Greenwood, the Greenwood campus, 210 Paisley Road. And of course, we will have service this coming Sunday at 1427 Suite E, Lawrence Road. That will be at 8 a.m. And that is the early bird service. And then we'll be in Greenwood at 210 Paisley Road, Hodges, South Carolina, at 10:30. Thank all of you for joining us. And of course, to our virtual campus and to our global connection. We know that our theme is ongoing, connect, grow, and serve. And this year we are talking about I choose better. And the topic we're going to deal with this evening is we're going to delve a little bit of the past, who I was. And I've said before that resonated with a lot of people, who I was is not who I am. And who I am is not who I am going to become. So we're going to start stretching that and breaking that down. Our focus this month is simple: influence and impact. We're going to deal with what has an influence over you, over me. What we see many times is what we believe. Many times we haven't validated it, we haven't checked it, we haven't gone through it, because our feelings and emotions get attached to it, and all we need, we talk about, I think the word was, it was something that had to do with bias. I don't want to dig back, but it's almost like whatever I think in my mind, all I need is one person to agree, and now I believe it. And even if it has no truths or no facts. So these are things we have to be aware of. So in the month of April, we want to think about what has influence on us and how it impacts us. And we go to, of course, to Galatians 5:1. Stand fast, liberty, Christ, you, be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. And the King James, the literal version, would be stand fast in the liberty. Most people think they're free, but they're not free because they're stuck with who they were. And if you're stuck with who you were, you can't embrace who you are. And if you can't embrace who you are, there's no way you can develop who you can become. And so we are still somewhat stuck in neutral. We are angry, we're frustrated, we have road rage, we have so many things that are going on in our society. We're hearing from the left, from the right, very few people in the middle. We have independence. And so we have to know that there's some things in control that we don't have control over, but yet we have a source that's over everything. So a hint to you is going to Romans 12:1. So I want just to ask you, what are the things that influence and make you up to be the person that you are today? So what I'm asking is, how did you get to this point? This moment in your life, how did you get there? There was something that had an influence on you that turned into an impact, and now it does everything in how you think, how you move, how you dress, how you receive information, how you reject information. This month is going to be somewhat of a self-study month. I have to study myself because people can tell you things, but the average person doesn't see it until it's sometime later when he or she wakes up. And normally what I call the buffers that stop growth is many times how we interpret what we hear. So I want to talk about what influenced you. One of the things I want to ask you is this: what customs are you establishing now in your life that will benefit you later? I've said this before. What would your future self say to your younger self? What would the person that lives to be, not necessarily live to a certain age, but let's say we're in 2024, let's say your thinking in 2030 will certainly be different than what it was in 2024. And the decisions that you and I make in 2024 will have an impact on what happens in 2030 as well as 2036. Why is that significant? Statistical data tells us that what we have today, by 2036, the average person, now this is statistic data, so don't think it's me telling you, the average person needs to be making $65 an hour in order to maintain what they have today. So the question becomes, what will you do differently to prepare? Until we can address the past, until we can learn how to close the door, until we can actually see ourselves reinventing ourselves while we are living, it is going to be challenging to accomplish things. Now, I didn't say it was challenging to get things, because most people can get things and most people can portray a look, a behavior. Most people can fake it. But you can fake it so long that now when reality comes, you almost lose your total person. Because your attitude is only like 1/5 of the dimension that you really are. The things that go wrong in your day are generally less than 10%. So my point is, 10% of dysfunction can affect 90% of consistency. I'll say it again. Many things that are dysfunctional are only about 10% of your day. How then does 10% of negativity and dysfunction affects 90%? So this is why we're talking about influence. What are you reading? So when I go back to what customs, I was listening to something the other day. Well, actually, I was reading it today, and it talked about a kid who was abandoned. Nobody knew where he came from. Nobody could find his parents. So a Jewish family took him in, and they raised him. He didn't know his name. He didn't know who he belonged to. But because of their customs, in the Jewish family, they will buy their children their first instruments. They're big in music and arts and culture. So they bought him one. Now, mind you, that particular version of the Jews, because there are Hebrew Jews, there are other types of Jews, there's a multiplicity of different segment of the Jewish community. And so the lady took him in. She taught him how to speak the Jewish custom. I don't want to mess it up, but I think it was almost a term of yadis. And he learned it. They embraced him. Now, he was nowhere in the complexion of the family. They raised him. They helped him begin. And today, he is one of our greatest jazz musicians ever. And so when I was reading it, it made me think about, they said it was the custom. I know one thing, that in certain cultures, when a child is born, they have already saved up, or when they get married, everybody brings something that can move the family forward. In certain cultures, the family will bring you riches, so they don't want you to want to see you in poverty. Question becomes, if we don't understand what's influencing us, we have no idea how it's impacting us, then we cannot deal with the presence. We cannot make the necessary adjustments in order for it to be sustainable, especially when we bring little people in the world. So when he grew up, he didn't see color. He saw love, he saw family. And reading that, his name was Louis Armstrong. He didn't know where he came from, but a Jewish family took him in, kept him around, waited for his parents to come. Don't know what happened, but yet he was one of our top 3 jazz players in the world today. What's influencing you? If you absorb it, it will have an impact on you. It can either spring you forward, or imprison you, or re-imprison you. So when we look at it, we say, I go back to the topic we talked about a little while ago, coming from a place of conflict. And this is about Steve Biko. I heard a song playing for change and didn't know his story. And he had a quote that says, "It's better to die for an ideal that will live than to live for an ideal that will die." Here's the thing. If things were wrong in your life, if things was wrong in your childhood, maybe the people who brought you along didn't have much information themselves. My question to you today is, what will be different in you? Will you give and not teach? Will you defend and not correct? Will you walk through life with blinders as if though you know everything? Or will you seek out knowledgeable people and be willing to listen so you can obtain knowledge that will make a difference in your life and those that you're connected to? I'll say it again. Coming from a place of conflict. Steve Biko was killed in South Africa in a questionnaire room because he believed that all people should be equal and treated fairly. My question to you, with the attitude and the move of our current culture, are you in the moment or are you preparing for the future? The moment will keep you exactly where you are. There are some people who are always saying, it was this, it was that. They said, I heard, they did this to me. They didn't allow me to do this. That is a person who's caught up in what was. People say, I represent my community, I represent my neighborhood, but how well have your neighborhood or your community represented you? Did they give you the tools to play in the community? Or did they give you the tools and groom your tools that you can be functional in the mainstream? I'll say it again. Coming from a place of conflict will oftentimes set up that when others try to add to you, we are trapped in a conflictual point in our lives. And when we do this, we literally shut down the capabilities of advancing ourselves. So here we are in April. We have all the pollen, we have the ragweed, we have all these things going on. You know why? Because nature and spring are changing and coming in. Even though I think it was March the 20th or March the 21st that we were introduced into spring, but now we're in that dysfunctional kind of climate where an adjustment has to be made. I'll say to you, are you in a place in your life that you are resisting, embracing the difficulty of transition? Who I was cannot handle who I am. So I literally have to shut the door of my past in order to embrace where I'm at. And where I'm at does not always feel like where I want to be. But what I have to understand is a part of my transition. I challenge you as we sit and study this month and work toward balancing ourselves. I wrote down about 7 things, but we're not going to take the time to do that. If you're with us in person Sunday morning at 1427 Sweet, you're with us live or you're with us at Greenwood, I will share those 7 things with you. I'll say it again. It's time to stand up for yourself. There's nothing in your past and in my past or who we were. And so here's the other thing. Sometimes you're still in an environment that you've outgrown. Sometimes you have to shed your old friendships. You have to shed old habits. Because you totally need to be focused on today and how much of today that you do something that will move the needle for you tomorrow. What have you learned? What have you intake? Because you can get in a moment, you can get in a feeling, you can be upset, you can get depressed, you can be all these things. But if you and I awaken tomorrow, tomorrow's going to need a different you than the person that was functioning in today. I say to you, join me. We're going to talk about influence and impact. How are you going to position, if you are a parent, your dreams along with your children's dreams and along with the vision that you should have for your family? Look to join me in person on this coming Sunday morning, or be online, and we'll look to see you there. Thank you, and God bless.